All right, so this is going to be a review of Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. I didn't get the chance to see it in the theater. I had some personal stuff going on. So it's on Disney Plus now, so I'm playing catch up. And once again, it's directed by James Gunn, just like the other two were. Um, I really love that first one. It's one of my favorites of the MCU, which is crazy because I talked a lot of shit about it from the trailer. But I ended up just loving it. So much fun. I love the characters and them coming together and all that. And it really worked. Volume 2, not so much. The second movie, I didn't really care for the main storyline with like Ego and these characters that I really like their dynamic. They're kind of split up in the movie and things like that. So it didn't work for me that much with like the main plot of the movie. But I still had fun with Drax and Groot, and I liked Nebula and Gamora's back and forth. So there's still some things that worked, but there were plenty of jokes in that just really fell flat for me, like the taser face thing.
You know what would be a really kick-ass name? Taserface! What was your second choice? Scrotum hat?
Anyway, now we have the third movie. I'll say how I feel about it in a second. It starts off with the Guardians. They're on nowhere and they're setting up things and things like that. Peter Quill, once again played by Chris Pratt, he's constantly drunk. He's dealing with the grief, the loss of Gamora, or at least the Gamora that was with them, right? Like we have the one that came there from the past and is technically different. She's with the Ravagers now, so they feel like they still lost Gamora for the most part. They end up getting attacked by Adam Warlock. Who's that actor again? Played by Will Poulter. And he ends up just wrecking shit. I mean, it's bad. And then he really starts beating into these Guardians, especially Drax. And he was doing the best against him. He was getting fucked up. But he ends up injuring. They end up taking care of him, but he ends up injuring Rocket Raccoon. The voice for Rocket is once again Bradley Cooper. And so the main plot of the movie is trying to help him because they try to give him medical care, but they can't do it because the experiments that were done on him to make him the way he was, done by the High Evolutionary, who's the villain in this, played by Chuck Woody Iwuji. In those experiments, I guess as like a protection of their investment, they put like this fail-safe type thing inside of him to keep people from anybody from doing anything to, I guess, his body. So they can't heal him. So they have to go and get his records from this facility of the High Evolutionary and do these other things so that they can potentially undo that thing inside of his body so that they can actually save his life. So what did I think? I thought it was great. I really, especially one thing we'll talk about in a second. It's definitely, at least for me, the best MCU movie that we've gotten, like, I'm pretty sure since Endgame. It hits you emotionally with Rocket's backstory and things like that. It actually leaves an impact on you way more than some of the things that they've just kind of been throwing out there, right? Just throwing whatever at the wall to see what sticks. That's what they've been doing pretty much since Endgame. And finally with this, I was like, okay, wow. It's like I was reminded, like, oh yeah, that's right. The MCU can be not only good but great. It's been a while. But yeah, I think this really works. Not as good as the first movie, I don't think. I still have some issues we'll talk about, but definitely better than the second one, and definitely left an impression on me. And the main thing that did that is Rocket's backstory. Oh, it's such a good idea to focus the movie on Rocket's backstory because it's so powerful. He's naturally smart, or at least smarter than the other test subjects. And you see, because he's still young, he kind of looks to the High Evolutionary almost like a father figure in these conversations that they have, which makes it even more, makes it affect you even more when things go sour, when he realizes just how expendable him and the rest of the test subjects are. I mean, and that moment with him finally escaping and what happens with the friends and all that. Oh man, that was a lot, right? Like I've seen people say that this movie's not kids shouldn't watch this movie or something like that. It's too much for kids, and honestly, maybe depending on the age, because like as a grown ass man, even I was tearing up. It was a lot. It is a lot. The High Evolutionary is great. This actor is really great in this role. He's definitely obviously playing God. He's created species and things like that. Right? He's constantly undoing things and starting over and things like that. You get that from his character, and he's kind of silly in a way at times, but he's still creepy and scary. He can still be intimidating, which I thought was really good. There's a point towards the end with one of the people he's working with, and they mentioned God in some way. I can't remember what, oh, for God's sakes, or something like that. and he's like, there is no God. That's why I stepped in. And I was like, man, that's really on the nose, but it works because the actor is so good in this role. So High Evolutionary was really good. One of the best villains we've gotten in a while. But the other aspects of the movie, also still work. I think it's well shot. Some really good camera work, great action scenes, especially towards the end. The climax is really good. And you still get those fun moments with these characters. The thing they had to do, getting the records or whatever in the facility, it's just so like outlandish. The costume design is all over the place, and I had a lot of fun with that. You still have those fun moments, even though it has this more emotional tone, a sadder tone with everything going on with Rocket. It can still be a lot of fun. All that being said, I still think this has some issues, and I think the main thing that like kind of makes these issues happen is that with this being what seems to be with what happens at the very end, which we'll talk about, the last Guardians movie, or at least in the form it's in. It feels like it has a lot that it has to do. Like you have Adam Warlock in this that was set up, I believe, in Volume 2, like at the end or the end credit or whatever, with those gold people. Turns out they were made by the High Evolutionary. And Will Poulter, I think, is good, and I like the character. He was kicking ass, especially in the beginning with the Guardians. It was kind of hard to watch, but he's not really in that much of the movie. He doesn't really do all that much for a character that from what I know of, is a character a lot of people really like, at least from the comic books and stuff. I think he was in the Infinity Gauntlet storyline, but he wasn't involved in like the Infinity War stuff in these movies, which I think people were kind of bummed out about. But he doesn't really have that much to do. Actually, whenever he's not around, I kind of forget about him. I don't like that they brought Gamora back. I never liked it. One of the most powerful moments, I think, in the entire MCU was Thanos having to sacrifice Gamora, right? Realizing that Thanos actually did care for her as his daughter, and her also finding that out, but then realizing that she was essentially destined to die for what he was trying to do. Really powerful stuff. So bringing her back in Endgame, I didn't like that. I was like, what is she gonna do? Why? And she's not going away like the rest of them. They bring that up in this movie when they get snapped away at the end of Endgame. And it's like, what is she gonna do? She's just with the Ravagers? Okay. And so they force her to be with the Guardians and go on this adventure with them pretty much. And it's endless with Peter constantly kind of forcing himself on her, like, oh, well, we had this past together. We had this, we were your family and things like that. And it's endless. He does it over and over again. It was getting redundant. It was getting annoying to me. It was kind of cringy to me. I was like, man, dude, she clearly doesn't remember you, doesn't want you. She got other stuff going on. It's just like, at this point, just kind of let it go.
But my Gamora, the one I love, she didn't find it with a group of criminals. She found it with us. People who care about you. I know that's who you still are. Somewhere inside of you.
All right, so we can talk about the thing that I hated the most in this movie. I was pissed. And this is rare that a movie gets me upset like this, especially a movie I like, this close to the credits. So we're going to talk about a spoiler. We're going to talk spoilers now, so you've been warned. And you've probably seen this already. It's been a while. It's been out for a minute. Well, it was in theaters a while ago, and it's even been on Disney Plus, I think, for a little bit now. So clearly this seems like it's going to be the last Guardians movie. So in this movie, they go through this whole thing. Peter almost dies, but he gets saved by Adam Warlock and things like that. Everything seems all right? They're going back to nowhere, and the Guardians were back together again. We saved our friend Rocket. Our family's together, other than, I guess, Gamora. She's going to go be a Ravager again, which makes her entire storyline kind of feel pointless, especially if she doesn't come back, if they decide to do another Guardians, which they probably won't. So after Gamora goes to be with the Ravagers, Peter's like, okay, let's have a meeting, right? They go to have the meeting, and Peter's like, I'm leaving. I'm going to see my grandfather. All right, I was like, okay, you brought this up earlier, but why is he leaving? But whatever. Maybe he's leaving, but he's going to come back after he deals with his shit. But no, this is the last Guardians movie, and it's going to be permanent. But then also, I guess Chris Pratt still wants to check because it said that he'll return. Whatever. But after he says he's leaving, then Mantis says she wants to go find herself. She's been with Ego. She wants to find out what she wants. And I was like, what's going on? And then Nebula and Drax, they're going to stay on Nowhere with those kids. And it's like the test subjects. And I really was thinking to myself, I was like, why is this come out of nowhere?
So that's it? The group's over?
No. Well, the galaxy still needs its guardians. And you will make a better leader than I ever was.
If you're going to have characters split up, especially characters that have such a familial bond, and the whole plot is essentially keeping that intact by keeping one of those characters alive. The whole thing that they're trying to do is to save Rocket, so he's part of the Guardians, and he's part of their surrogate family that they have going on. And Rocket feels like he doesn't have a purpose. His purpose is essentially with the Guardians, and he's going to lead the Guardians going forward. So you still kind of have that, but for him to be healed by them, saved by them, and with the Guardians are they're together, for them to all just out of nowhere be like, you know what, I'm leaving. You know what, I'm leaving too. You know what, me too. Like, just out of nowhere. There's no setup. You're supposed to have that be a common theme in the movie if you're going to split these characters up in the end. But it's not. It feels like, other than the mention of the grandfather earlier on, which I had forgotten about by then, it feels like it comes out of nowhere. Anyway, that's it. I'm going to give it awesome. Not quite my highest rating because of those things that I mentioned, but I still really enjoyed it. The villain, definitely Rocket's backstory. Just really emotional stuff. Superhero movies have become more and more, like a Carnival Ride or whatever, like where it's just endless, empty fun, and some of them aren't even fun at all. So it's nice to have one that actually feels like it has depth to it again. There you go. That's Guardians Volume 3. I really liked it. I thought it was great. I really did, even with my issues. Especially with the way at the very end, which is my main issue, I think. But anyway, yeah, that's it. That's Guardians 3. We're done.